5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
This is Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
Chris would say, I like to keep it within tradition. How are we all doing? Sorry I'm a little bit late. Technical issues. I have all the powers that be to do everything that Chris could do, except for go live, apparently. StreamYard. What can you do? This is the preview show, the much anticipated preview show. It is the return of Championship football. And despite all the rumours, we do have a game on Sunday to go ahead for. We have a wonderful guest in the background, Stevie. He's joining me from, and he hasn't paid me extra to say this, but I am saying this for him, the award-winning Wednesday week. He will be joining me shortly in the background to actually discuss football. I would say it feels good to be back, but as a Leicester fan, well, relegation was painful. And Wednesday, well, if you don't know, you must be hiding under the rock. The troubles they're going through. I am going to bring him in a moment, and I just want to say a big thank you to Chris, who was luckily not putting his feet up and having a nap. He was awake enough for me to come and join in and get the show started. How are we all doing? Let's get him in today. Chris, I can see in the background, nothing's working for me as much as it is, mate. So if you want to play an intro video or not, let me know now. Because if not, I'm going to bring in our guest, Stevie. Stevie, mate, how are you? Here he is, folks. Better late than never. We've got him in. And being as my laptop's having an absolute meltdown and doesn't want to let me do anything, I'm ever thankful for Chris for doing everything for me. Give the guy a night off, and he still needs to come and save my arse. It's always the case. Stevie, how are you doing, my friend?
Do you know what? This last 5 minutes of talking to you has cheered me up no end. I felt like I was on suicide watch at 6 o'clock today. But no, I'm all good, mate. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure at all to have you on. And of course, we're going to be talking both depressing football for different reasons for both our clubs. But you are, as you said, award-winning Wednesday week, and we will be coming on your channel after this to do a preview on your channel, won't we? Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if the description for Stevie's channel is in the it's in the description. For enough, he saves in the description. It's going to be there. That's where it is. So make sure you head over there, show him a lot of love and support on that channel, because we will be going over there straight after this. With the delay, I suppose you're dreading we say this about a preview, but shall we get into talking football?
If we have to do it, let's do it. Let's get into talking some football. Let's do it.
Sadly, we do. Yeah, sadly we do. Now, obviously, we've had this in the past with certain subjects. You obviously get tired of doing it. For those that don't know, Sheffield Wednesday are in a lot of turmoil at the moment. If you don't know, you must have been hiding under a social media rock. I'm going to be asking you, Stevie, in a minute about a bit more about that from the fans' perspective. But the statements that have come out, I'm just going to highlight a few statements that came out. The club posted 30-day late payments for this year that only began on the period of July the 1st, 2025. Fee restrictions have been in place and extended up until the winter transfer period of the 26-27 season. And the EFL are basically trying to come up with a solution with Sheffield Wednesday, I believe his chairman, Mr. Chanasini. I butchered that name. I'm surprised you probably don't care with how he's treating your club at the moment if I butcher his name. You're speaking with his legal advisors in a disinvestment of his sharing in the club. There is no restrictions going further into the season, but this has been a turmoil. For those that maybe only see what we see on X and Facebook and a little bit of breaking news, this hasn't just been going on for 3 months. How long's this battle been going on for Sheffield Wednesday and against their ownership?
I suppose you could probably trace it all the way back to the sort of just before the COVID season. So 29-20, we spent big. Chansiri came in 2015, so he's just marked his 10-year anniversary of ownership. And when he arrived, he was a bit of a saviour because we with a history of having dodgy owners at Sheffield Wednesday. Chansiri came in, made all the right noises, spoke really well and really highly about the things that he was intending to do with us. And we spent a lot of money in that first 2 or 3 seasons. And for those that don't know or don't remember, made it to within sort of 20 minutes of the Premier League, got to Wembley in the playoff final, lost 1-0 in a bit of a drab affair to Hull City. And then we repeated the feat and made it to the semi-final against Huddersfield, the year that Huddersfield went up without scoring a goal in open play. They beat us in the semi. And then it kind of unravelled a little bit to the point where sort of 2019, 2020, we were finding ourselves a little bit short of cash, shall we say. And just off the back of the Derby County sort of scenario, Chansiri had the idea that he was going to sell himself the stadium. But what he wasn't very good at doing was he wasn't very good at submitting the paperwork, the necessary paperwork within specific timeframes and declaring things that he should have been declaring when he should have been declaring them. And as a result of that, we ended up getting a points deduction, let me get the date right, 2020-21 season, I think it was, that saw us ultimately get relegated into League One. We went down with a bit of a whimper, to be fair. Late in the game, we conceded a penalty against Derby, and ironically enough, and ended up playing 2 years in League One. We've come back up, and when we got promoted in 2023, Chansiri made a lot of noises on an open top bus parade that now that we were up, he's going to start pushing for the Premier League. We don't want to stay up, we don't want to consolidate, we want to push and we want to go again. It very quickly became apparent that we didn't have any money to sort of back that up. We employed a manager called Xisco Munoz, who had history of getting Watford out of the league. He got Watford up in the sort of the COVID era. Didn't win a game with us. Will go down in history as being our worst manager. And then we employed Danny Röhl. Then things started to get a little bit better with a relatively poor squad. Röhl managed to keep us up, having had our worst start to the season in our history. We ended up finishing quite comfortably the season before last. And our form from October would have taken us into the top 8, I think it was. So we were hitting pre-season last year with lots of optimism around the club. And then it's just fallen off a cliff. So we get to October, November time. There's rumours about the manager going. And at that point, we really wanted to keep him, wanted to retain him. We thought he was, going to be the person that would take us forwards. There was sort of fallouts between Chansiri and Danny Röhl this side of Christmas. The other side of Christmas, sort of November, December time. And at that point, it became quite apparent that there were the sort of bigger issues that we were alluding to with these statements that have been released. And there were a number of forums that the chairman has held, and it's become apparent that he's got a lot of hot air and says a lot of things that aren't necessarily substantiated or backed up with any sort of financial nous. So yeah, we've been feeling it, and we've suffered a lot of late payments to players and staff. that I'm sure we'll get into over the next sort of 10, 15 minutes or so. But it's essentially, as a headline sort of piece, our players and our staff have not been paid on time for 4 out of the last 5 months, which has led to the sanctions that we've alluded to. I think we're the first team in EFL history to be hit with 3 consecutive embargoes. And as of, I think it was either last night or this morning, the embargo has been extended for that 30-day period that you've talked about. And we can't now buy a player or pay a fee, whether that be transfer or loan. We can't pay a fee now till the summer of 27.
Yeah, and that just shows the extent that how damaging it can be when an owner seemingly gives up on the idea. I know other clubs would say, "Oh, we've got bad owners." I know Hull City, infamously, that owner wanted to change the name of the club. He wanted to rebrand it. Cardiff, there was a rebranding issue there. They wanted to go red. He wanted to be like the Dragon, and I suppose they all hold their own weight in their arguments as it is. But it just shows just how damaging it is to not just the club itself, because obviously, you know, we can see the damage it's having. There's a lot of players that were handing in basically their resignation, like it was a 9-to-5 job. We're done. We don't want to be here. There was a little part where it seemed that he was going to, Danny Röhl was going to take the Leicester job at some point. That was a strong thing before he decided to come back to work for you for that small period. But this is next level thing. And like I said, this has just been building and building and building. And I mean, I remember you had that great, playoff against Peterborough, the comeback, one of the best comebacks in the playoff semi-final history. And then you sacked him. And it was just so surreal. I remember we were in the Championship, and that's that season that you'd come up, and me and Chris, until you replaced and got someone in and did a fair shout, were a bit miffed as to what happened, and was kind of not sorry, but we were backing you to go down, sort of thing. That's what it is. I'm going to get into I'm going to ask you about players and the whole manager scenario. I just want to quickly say hello to Craig in the chat. He said hello earlier. We eventually got started after technical difficulties. I want to say hello to Craig. Hello. Good morning to Nate from the USA. Hope you're all right. Michael, I have returned. You must be the prodigal man that's been asking for my return. I am here. And Be Careful FC says, what's Callum Wilson doing on here? Have you had that before? Yeah, I don't know if you take that as a compliment or as an insult, but he seems to think you have Callum, you look a little bit like Callum Wilson.
Listen, I'll take it.
Fox as well.
I'll take it.
I'll take getting recognised as anyone other than myself, to be honest with you. So yeah, it's not too bad. As long as he's not someone who's in trouble with the law, I'm not too forced. I'll take that as a compliment. But yeah, going back to the situation in hand, I mean, there was a big players' meeting, if you will, big council of the players that decided to go ahead with this weekend's game on Sunday, suggesting they basically were advised, look, put the love of the club behind the turmoil that's going on now, because one way or another, you feel that the players, they'll get new clubs. They'll keep playing football. You supporters won't have that to follow as a club. You know what I mean? You won't have a fan. You won't have a team to follow if that was the case. If it went completely lopsided for you, would you? You look at teams like Bury, Bolton were a few hours from going out of it. How close does it feel as a fan base? How worried are you as a fan base that could potentially be? Seeing all these key players that are leaving or handed in their resignations, it is to the club.
Where do you start with answering that question? I suppose you'd start with the last bit by sort of saying we're worried in terms of the players that have left. We finished last season and 14 players have gone, so we've lost 14 of our squad and we've not replaced them. And of the 14 players that have gone, we've lost 5, I think it is, of our top goal scorers have all walked without being replaced. So Jerry Gassama's gone to Glasgow Rangers, and he's, in relative terms, he's tearing it up there. He scored 3 goals in the Champions League qualifiers, started last weekend, and he's gone for what we consider to be a paltry 2.2 million that we won't see any benefit from. We've lost Anthony Masaba, who was the top assist claimer, if you like, and over the last 2 years, matched Gassama's number. He went out to Turkey for £800,000, scored on his debut. We've lost Josh Windass, who is our top goal scorer since the turn of the century. He's going to play against us for Wrexham this year. And we've lost Michael Smith as well, who signed for Preston. So you take those four there straight away. And then you look a little bit further down. We kind of want to look at it from a sustainability point of view. If anybody remembers Danny Cadamartri, we've got his two sons. So Bailey made it into the team a couple of years ago. Bailey Cadamartri made it into the team a couple of years ago, and his little brother Kalen was absolutely tearing it up. He's only 15 years old and has been breaking records at junior level, left, right, and centre, and was one that we thought we'd get in, give him a couple of years, and maybe sell him for double-figure millions, which is, that's the model that you want to try and do. We've ended up letting him go to Man City, and Man City have given us 1.5 million for him, which again seems quite a lot of money for a 15-year-old to a neutral. But when you look at the pedigree that he's shown in our academy squad, it's a relative pittance. So that kind of tells you where we are now. All that money that we're sort of recouping has gone to pay the debt that the chairman's accrued, and it's gone to pay the outstanding wages for May and June per se. We're surmising that that's where it's gone, because we're not seeing it being reinvested back into the squad. So that's kind of the situation that we find ourselves in terms of the playing squad at the moment. Obviously, Röhl came back. I know you alluded to Röhl coming back in. He was linked to you guys. He was linked to Southampton, and he's kind of touted himself around to every potential suitor that he could. So he wanted to link himself with any job that came available. He was linked with Rangers. We were on the Rangers channel a while back. We've obviously spoken to yourselves. Southampton have been in touch. He's been out in Germany. The season finished last year, and he got on a plane direct from Watford, went back to Germany for 6 weeks, fine. But the rumours tended to suggest that he had no intention of coming back. And he sat at home for the first 2 weeks of pre-season while our lot came back in, and training was being taken by the academy coaches. And then he's come back. We feel that he came back to try and manufacture a move away to get some compensation or get his compensation waived. And as it happens, rather than get a compensation fee for him, we've negotiated it down, and Chansiri and with all his business now has refused to let him go even a couple of weeks ago for £1 million. They've then gone into another meeting, and he's walked for nothing because we just had to let him go because the position was untenable.
Yeah. Do you hold a little bit of maybe a little bit of resentment then towards Röhl for how he's potentially handled the situation, or are you one of them who goes, you know what, she was on the other foot, I'd be doing the same, the way the club's treated not just him but his playing staff and his other stuff? Because I know it's his assistant that's taken over for the time being, or is that a permanent appointment? I know his assistant. So how do you feel about it? Has it left a bit of a bitter taste in it? Because like you said earlier, it was just starting to look like it was, clear the dust, let me clear the, proverbial out, and then I can help rebuild Sheffield and get us back up there. So how's that made you feel as fans? What's the feeling about the way he's gone about leaving you in that sense?
The general consensus, and I think I'd speak for the vast majority of Sheffield Wednesday supporters, the general consensus was he's the best manager we've had since the Premier League era. And I've said that quite a lot on our show. You go back 30 years, we've not had a manager since we've come out of the Premier League that has done what he's done. He was progressive. He's if you know anything about Danny Röhl, he was in the system at Bayern Munich in terms of coaching. He's had experience with the Red Bull. He was Hansi Flick's assistant manager at Germany. So he's been in around it. He was Ralph Hasenhüttl's assistant at Southampton as well. So he's got Premier League coaching experience. He came to us and nobody knew who he was. And then all of a sudden, you kind of do your research and you look at the style of football that we were playing and you hear the rumours from within the playing camp, and it quickly became apparent that this guy was something special. And even after everything, I maintain that by the time he's sort of 42, 43, he will be managing in your Champions League level. He will prove to be that good. And I know with hindsight, certain supporters would probably argue that some of the choices that he made into the tactics this side of Christmas would suggest that he's a little bit tactically naive still. He effectively down tools in December, and he's limped over the line with us, and we've scraped through to a mid-table finish with a guy that his head had gone. He wasn't bothered, and I think to answer your question in terms of do we resent him, it's left a sour taste in the mouth because he was so revered and he was held in such high regard. It got to a point where we thought, well, you can't blame him because of the conditions that he's working under with this chairman that we're not fans of. But the bigger issue is the moment Southampton came calling, he was interested. The moment Leicester were looking, he was waiting to get out. The moment Rangers were there were links there. He's held interviews for the last 2-3 months where he said, my next challenge will be something special or words to that effect. I remember Sheffield Wednesday with fondness. And then when that compensation hasn't been paid and people haven't been able to get that deal done, he's then come back to us. And when he came back, he didn't speak to anybody. So there was no press conference, there were no statements. He had relatively good relationships with, as I said previously, the fan base and the local journalists. There was not one thing said from Danny. We had maybe 2-3 photos of him at the training ground. But there was very little other than that.
Yeah, I can see exactly where you're coming from. Like, it's bittersweet. You want him the best, and you've held him in high regard as fans to say that he's going to become a top manager at such a young age. And it is a young age to be managers. For most players, that wouldn't even be 10 years out of the game playing it, let alone the experience he's gained in the backroom staff. Having said that, sometimes, and you talked there about the youngsters that you've had, and unfortunately you've lost a few. Speaking of skillful 15-year-olds, Jeremy Monga for us is a similar prospect. Yeah. Thank you for letting him go to Man City so we can keep hold of Monga. That's clearly what kept him around. But no, we did a preview because we were talking about Wilfred and Ndidi moving to Besiktas. I said it right, Chris. I said it right this time. He's in there if he hears that, because I struggle to say that team's name. And we were talking about, obviously, how we've got the prospect of youngsters coming through. We've had a lot through our pre-season tour. And in this day and age, if you see 4 or 5 youngsters in there, they're in the back of the manager's mind. Maybe not as a first-team player, but they're going to get a chance to show their craft and earn their ply to become a first team member. Some more than others, with Monga obviously having a few Premier League experiences last season and Jake Evans. But what we're looking at is, you could look at us in similar turmoil, awful Premier League season. Everybody's against Sheffield Wednesday. So in a sense, there's no pressure on your youngsters and whatever players you have that remain come Sunday to be in your squad. Heavy relegation favourites, but is there actually a chance you come out of this somehow? Is this the start of, if not necessarily light at the end of the tunnel, but you can feel the breeze of the air through the cracks, that maybe the rebuild can start here? If even if you do go down to League One, you go down fighting and feeling that there's something there for the future, a bit like we did when the trapdoor fell for us to League One, and we came back with players that wanted to be there. That's what we felt. Is that sort of what you're hoping from the season? Or is there even a miracle you can see a light at the end of the tunnel?
The only way that we can see that light at the end of the tunnel is if the chairman goes. We are convinced that we're going to go down. We believe that we will get relegated because of the state of play that we're in and the issues that we've got because of the restrictions that we're faced with, that the chairman cannot solve. He can't stop it. He can't change it. I think this afternoon we reported that the outstanding debt has been paid, for example, which means that some of the restrictions will be lifted, but we are still unable to pay fees. We still don't know when we'll be able to sign players that are able to get. And one of the restrictions that we've got is that we can't pay more than £7,000 a week in terms of salary. So we can sign players, potentially free agents, but they would come for, with due respect to other teams of whatever size on the lower end of the Championship, top end League One. I know it sounds daft saying it. £7,000 in 2025 isn't a great deal of money for the kind of player that you want to make you competitive in this league. So we're reliant on those young players. The general feeling is We've had a lot of false dawns. There's been talk about takeovers that have been, people have turned their nose up at certain groups that have said that they want to make money. They want to do a deal with the money that they've got. The bigger issue that we haven't talked about is the valuation that the chairman's put on the club. Now, our stadium is relatively old. People that know anything about football will know what Hillsborough, the heritage, the history, good and bad, that you've got at Hillsborough. It's in disrepair. The North Stand has been effectively deemed unusable. And that's another issue. We've got 9,000 people that sit on there and potentially 6,000 season ticket holders that are going to have to be rehoused around other areas of the stadium, which is another sort of pain in the neck. And that's where our disabled supporters sit as well. The only way that gets better and the only way that we bounce back is if we go down with not assurances, but an understanding that there's going to be somebody else in at the helm. And that's what we're clinging on to. If we're looking for a little bit of optimism as a club, it's that the chairman sees sense and moves on, because at the minute he's valuing the club at £100 million. We are not a £100 million club at the moment. Our market value is probably less than half of that. But because, reading between the lines, he's got a lot of debt that he needs to pay off. He's asking for more money so he can satisfy the people that he owes money to. And that's where we feel, and that's where the frustration as a Wednesday fan base comes from, because we don't see the money that he makes, because he puts it back into paying wages, paying off debts and paying salaries, rather than trying to improve things at the club.
Yeah, so it just sounds really much like you as fans are just holding out for him to bash his head and wake up and see sense and see the light, and kind of stop holding Sheffield Wednesday hostage for his own misdoings, if you will. It's such a horrible, situation to see any club in. And me and Chris always say, doesn't matter what badge you wear. I mean, you're no affiliation of rivalries to Leicester, of course, but I'd like to think even the not so glamorous half of Sheffield, as I'll say it for you. I don't want to make you ill by saying the other side, the Blades. I don't want to mention them too much, but I'd imagine that it'd be nice to think the rivalry aside that they don't want to see, complete turmoil. I suppose they wouldn't mind you going down to League One as long as you're still around for them to give you jip over. But we talked about youngsters, and you talk about already admitting defeat, which is perfectly understandable given the circumstances to go through. With that in mind, obviously there's a lot of key players. You mentioned 14 went from last season. The manager you have in charge now is obviously, he was Röhl's assistant at the time. With the fact that you now have very limited experienced first team players, not much chance of at all bringing in players of any high quality in any way, but like you said, only being able to offer them £7,000 a week, which sadly, you're right, in today's era is not a lot of money to a lot of players. What might that do in change of the lineup? Do you think he will change the style of play that Röhl integrated into you? Have you seen enough of him to suggest that maybe he has his own ideas, or is it a case of forced to do so because you've left me working with the 16, 17, 18-year-olds? He's got no choice. How can you see your style of play and how you might line up next season? Well, this season, should I say?
Well, this is the other bit. We haven't held a pre-season friendly that anybody can attend.
They're suffering enough. Don't say give them Daka. That's mean.
I've just seen that comment pop up, and I thought, I wonder what that means.
They're suffering enough. Leave them alone.
Listen, we'll take him. We'll take him. And we'll take him.
Oh, we'll have him. I'm sure we'll take £7,000. We'll pay his wages. Have him online. Have him for free.
Well,
we'll pay his wages.
The reality is that, the reality is with 13, 14, I think 14, I think it is first team players. We've got at least 2 or 3 that are injured. Plus we've got a goalkeeper, and then a backup goalkeeper that's going to have to supplement out of that squad. We're effectively going to line up with the best 11 and then 3, if not 4 subs. And then the rest of our substitutes are going to be kids, people that are untried, untested, that have never played at this level, academy players, etc. And that's the state of play for the next, certainly, if we don't get any business done in the next 3 weeks, I think it is. That's us until Christmas, obviously, unless we can get something done around the embargo and get free agents over the line once that's lifted. In terms of the coach itself, we can't talk about his style of play because nobody's seen it, because we haven't had the players to be able to hold friendlies.
Yeah.
So we've started the season, pre-season, the ground wasn't ready, the training ground wasn't ready. So we had certain players that were making their way down to the local athletics track and doing laps of that. We've had players that have been hiring personal trainers and doing their own bits here and there. We've had people carpooling to go and do little bits of runs out and wherever they can. The first team got back to training on a 4G up at the academy, the junior setup, the community setup. So that obviously set us back a little bit as well. And then the friendlies that we've had, because there's been such turmoil in terms of players committing and being able to play, have been filled by under 18s, under 21s, under 23s. I think we played York and beat them, and we beat another team. And then we were due to go to Burnley on Saturday. That game got cancelled last Thursday because the players effectively went on strike and said, we're not going to play it because of the lack of payment, again, because it was payday last Thursday and they didn't get paid. In terms of style of play, there's a general consensus that as good as Röhl was, Pedersen is actually the man that has been pulling a lot of the strings. Certainly when we were in terms of phases of play and things like that, when we were with the ball and without the ball, it was him that was sort of saying, this is how we need to be setting up. And he had the respect of the players. And I think if you were to ask, and obviously we haven't got a direct line to the playing squad, but if you were to ask the players that are there, if they were happy that he was in, I'd say the vast majority would say, yeah, we're happy. It offers that level of consistency, that transition in a very sort of tumultuous period in our sort of history, if you like. So he will get the backing of every Sheffield Wednesday fan at the moment, because he's, if for no other reason, then when people aren't getting paid, he signed a contract not knowing if he's going to get paid next month. That goes to show how committed he is to the club, and that was something that set him apart from his predecessor.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you try and look for in a manager. I mean, you may want to send an email to Sheffield Wednesday asking them if they want Chris from LTRD TV, because he's trying to give you a great deal here, because he says buy two, get one free. He'll throw in Wout Faze. I'm surprised it isn't buy three, get one free, buy one, get free, and he's not chucking in Samare, because he loves Samare. I'm surprised he hasn't tried to sell you half our reserve team going up at the moment. So yeah, maybe, who knows? Maybe Chris can be the saviour alongside him. Get him in as assistant manager. But yeah, I mean, you never know, though, do you? I mean, if you say like we kind of had that with, rest in peace, bless him, Craig Shakespeare, that at some managers he was more the vocal point, the one that kept the unit together and got them going. You know, so you can have a rebound effect if that goes on. I mean, if you can avoid a points deduction, you only need a little bit of luck in your favour. But at what point, if you got off to an okay start, because I'm going to give you an interesting fact. The last time Leicester played a squad that was very depleted of starting players was Hull City the year after we won the Premier League. Hull City had 11 available players and only 10 outfield players they could field come the day of it. They had their bench made up of reserve players and players that weren't even playing, had only just kicked the ball for the under-21s in anger. Right? Hull City beat us 2-1 that day. Now, granted, that was at Hull and away from home, but if you've got any hope to getting off to a good start, Chris isn't over that yet. I've started him off on a tantrum about that. If you ever had hope of having to start the miracle, do you see that happening if you go back to that pre-December form? Do you think if he can manifest that? Because you're suggesting that there's the idea that he was the puppet master behind the puppet, if you will. Is there a chance then, if he's got the backing of the fans, which is pivotal, and the players brought into that, you could maybe give yourself a fighting chance? Because a lot of people obviously have you 24th this year. Is there at least a chance you could be at least getting into the March, April, May with a chance still?
if we are within, and this is one thing I've learned about Sheffield Wednesday over the last sort of 2 or 3 years, if there's a miracle to be done, if there was one team in the country that could do it, it'd be us. Nobody thought we'd turn that 4-0 around. Nobody thought we'd stay up at the back end of the first season that Röhl was there, and we did it on both parts. The feeling amongst us is that for us to stay up, we need to top those 2 miracles to do it. But whilst ever you've sort of gone through that recent history of incredible things that are being done, you've got to hold on to it. Pragmatically, there's not a Sheffield Wednesday fan that believes we're going to stay up, and I think the majority of us would argue that we'd take relegation if it meant that the chairman went, we got a takeover, and our club had some sort of stability and a decent infrastructure within that. But to your point, we won't do it unless we can get 4 or 5 bodies in sharpish. There are people that, by all accounts, don't want to loan us their players because they know about the financial situation, the way that things are going at the moment. If you were an outside football club looking at Sheffield Wednesday and you were a manager wanting to develop a player, there's absolutely no way you'd send them to Sheffield Wednesday at the moment. So it's reliant on the manager and the senior players to then turn around and go, look, things are going to get better. We are going to be in a better situation in the next sort of, the coming 2-3 months that we are. And then if you hold on till January, we might be able to do a little bit more, and we go again. And then we look to go again, we look to go again. The one thing I would say is that from a recruitment point of view, we don't sign players for money particularly well. Our better players tend to come for nominal fees or on frees. So you take the captain, Barry Bannon didn't cost us anything. Some of the better players in our recent history cost very little, if anything at all. So I don't, as daft as it sounds, I don't worry too much about the fact that we can't pay fees. I think if we recruit right, we'll be okay. Whether that be in League One or whether that be in the Championship, again, depends on the next sort of 2-3 months. But I don't see us finishing anywhere else but bottom 2 at best. We think we're going to finish 24th. I think we're the highest sort of bank-backed team for relegation in the history of betting at the minute. I think it's something like 73% of all bets that are being placed on relegation are being placed on us. So it tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, which is understandable given everything that we know as outsiders and what you've managed to enlighten us to on the show today. Having said that, let's cast your mind back to when things were slightly better for Sheffield Wednesday fans, if I will. It was the 2023-24 season, and both these games could have ended differently for us. But let's talk before Röhl gave up the ghost, in between that little rebuild period where I think you won 4 out of 6 games and was going really well. We came to Hillsborough, which we have a rich record of going there for big games, and we came out with a 1-1 draw. Considering our season and considering how we were high and flying at that point, that must have felt like one of them games where you felt like you'd won it, because we felt like we'd lost it by not being able to beat you, given the top and bottom of where the clubs were at that point. What were your memories of that game? Did you go to that game, or was it a game that you wish you'd gone to for that part, because it's like, wow, we actually didn't get smashed by Enzo's Leicester City?
I was there. I'm a season ticket holder. I go with my little girl. So my overriding memories of it was us thinking, I think like you said, we've been on a bit of an upward trajectory in terms of where things were going. We'd begun to stop the rot, shall we say. And we picked up a couple of points here and there. We got our first win under the belt, and then it was, right, the big boys are in town. And obviously there's an affinity with Sheffield Wednesday fans for Jamie Vardy, because he was a Wednesday player that as a youth he was there and released as a very young man, and he's a Wednesday fan. So we'll always sort of hold him in relatively high regard. Again, celebrate goals against Sheffield United like he's won the FA Cup final. So for that reason alone, so we were excited about any time that you can get to see Leicester turning up. You had that. My overriding memory of the game was that we actually started really well, and Enzo had you playing out from the back, and there was a couple. I think it was Bailey Cadamartri chased one down in the first 2-3 minutes, and the goalkeeper went to launch one. He'd been playing backwards and forwards, went to launch one, and Cadamartri he blocked it down. He knocked it down, and we came close to scoring earlier on. And I actually think in the first half of that game, we were at least equal, if not the better side. And we were sitting there looking at each other, going, "We're onto something here." And then obviously, a moment of magic. I think he scored either just before or just after half time, if I recollect. Saw us go 1-0 down, and then ironically, we had a guy who came off the bench, and people will know Jeff Hendrick. We'd loaned him from Newcastle, and I don't think he was bothered about playing football anymore. But he came on, and I think he scored the equaliser in the 93rd minute with his first touch. And people looked, going forwards for the rest of the season, people looked at that moment against Leicester as that being our turning point. And it galvanised us a little bit. It gave us a little bit of self-belief that we could go on and we could compete with the top-end teams in the Championship that season. And it proved to be the case. Like I said earlier on, from October onwards, we were effectively playoff form. So,
yeah, it was a good thing of signs to come. I just want to say quickly hello to Rene in the chat. And he says he wants Kone from Wickham to come in. He's also very giving you a beat down of Monga hat-trick or Fatu hat-trick against Wednesday. He says you just need players that want to play for the club and give 100%. You can beat anyone on that day. I get where you're coming from. Cheers, Chris. Just got your private message. I get where you're coming from, but like Rich says, unfortunately, money does talk in football, and when it comes down to that fine cut, it's all well and good saying, "Oh, let's play for the club and do our best." I don't think anyone joins a club unless you're Edward. You don't join a club on loan or join a club permanently and just down tool somebody else. Twitch, Chris. Yeah, so I don't think that's just you can't just say that's how it turns up. You know what I saw there. But that's how it is. But then we fast forward a few more months, and we would probably we kind of flipped a little bit in form. You had started to really pull away from that drop zone area. You know, like you said, you was in that form where, had it been from the start, you could have been talking about a late run for the playoffs. And we were going for a bit of a frustrating patch at that moment. I think we had Leeds in that period who spectacularly predicted a riot and then fell apart. I can't remember what happened. Oh, well, anyway, as it is, you know, these things happen, isn't it? It's not like they thought they'd knocked us out the perch and would keep their spot in the top two or anything. What fan base would be that foolish? Anyway, but you came to us in April, I believe it was, of that season. And now we beat you 2-0, but I distinctly, this game has stood in my head because obviously when if you lose a game and you see the lads put in all the effort and go for it, you don't like to lose, but you can go, you know what, we gave it everything we could, like you, I don't know how you felt about that game yourselves, if you went to it because it was an away game or what, but I feel like the way Wednesday fans would have felt by that game was like, how did we actually lose that 2-0? Because I remember you actually, again, dominated the chances. You had the earlier breakthrough. And me and Chris were pretty seething throughout most of that game. Chris is always seething. We could be 9-0 up and Chris could be seething that we haven't scored 10. It was like that in the Southampton game. But, you know, and it just felt like a lucky escape. Like we was, exactly, it felt like a lucky escape. You know, considering we were top or maybe even dropped down to second at that point, we really felt we got away with it, where we were actually saying, if this wasn't a Sheffield Wednesday side battling for our lives, and it was at the time a Leeds or a Middlesbrough who were up and around at the time, we would have lost that game. I mean, again, I don't know if you and your daughter went to that game, but was that the feeling that Sheffield Wednesday, you as fans had? Did you feel that, I missed an opportunity to go undefeated against the team that's going to win this league here? Because you really did put us on the back burner that game.
Yeah, it was. I didn't get to it, but I remember it well. And I remember we had form for trying to play a style of football that at that period that I think some of our players either weren't yet conditioned under the manager and the coaching staff that we had. And they weren't ready to sort of play out from the back. And when they did, they were liable to make the odd mistake here or there. And I just feel that there was a little bit, if I recollect, we were the equals again, if not better side, but we defensively, we can't say this, dropped a couple of bollocks. And then that was that. So, you know.
Words have been said worse on this stream, trust me.
Yeah. But it was just one of those where I think for us personally, it was right. It's frustrating in the sense that we could have matched at that point one of the better teams in the league, if not the best team in the league. And you come away from it feeling that it was effectively a free hit for us, given where we were at the time. Ironically, that's where we're going to be pretty much every week. If we win a game, it's a bonus at the moment. But yeah, we felt coming away from it that we'd not done ourselves any sort of injustice. We'd not embarrassed ourselves. It was just one of those games where mistakes let us down, and that's been the narrative, I suppose, for some of the games that we've sort of where we've conceded silly goals. It's a lot of it has been through our own knitting, if you like, where we've made the mistakes and it's cost us points. And I think that probably happened a fair bit last season as well. Where we've either been in the box seat where we've been winning games, or we've been drawing games and ended up losing late on because we've conceded soft goals. So that's something that certainly at the moment we're going to be susceptible to, but we need to try and get that out of that fabric of the playing squad that we've got at the moment.
Yeah, it was. I mean, like you said, it's a shame that couldn't have been like a mini push on for this season. Everything that's unraveled because, it would have been nice, obviously for yourselves. It would have been nice to have looked at that playoff form you was in and been able to hold it together and go. Because, like I said, all right, we went for a really bad period at that point, but that was a game that I remember we were sat there at the end of it going, I can't believe we're mad that we've won a game of football, but we were really mad the way that Chris is very infamous for saying, if you didn't know anything about football and you said one was top of the Championship and one was struggling down the bottom after watching that game, which one was which, you wouldn't be able to tell that it was Leicester that were flying high and it was Sheffield that was struggling. So, because we took 4 points out of a possible 6 off you. That was very generous, if for lack of a better word, that we got them points off you. And it is a shame that this year's looking so disastrously and looking like a bad season for you, as sad as it is. Breaking-ish news that Chris himself has released. Don't get too excited. It's sad news for Leicester fans. It seems that a deal has been struck between West Ham and Leicester City for Leicester City's first choice goalkeeper, Mads Madsen, who you would have known from that season in the Championship, a quality keeper. The fee believed to be around 20 million, give or take. Hello? What's going on here? I think Chris is putting it up on the screen. I think that's what he's doing. I don't know what he's doing. What's going on?
Graphical. Chris, get it in the private chat. Let Brad know what you're doing.
Yeah, I know, right? He's putting. I can see him loading it up there. I can see loading it up. It is an agreed fee of around 20 million, I believe, for the international. However, we have had Leicester fans, sad news, but don't get too carried away, because a man of great experience who played a lot for us at the back end of the Premier League season, Jakub Stolarczyk, and there it is. So it looks like you're not going to have him to worry about being in the net. If there is a man that's going to score a goal for you or create chances for it, out of who's left, should I say, who is Sheffield Wednesday's one to watch? Who should Leicester fans be looking at thinking, if anyone's going to cause an upset in the apple cart, do a whole city to us, if you will, who's that player that could potentially at least give you something to smile about opening weekend of the season?
Oh, goodness me. Well, the talisman, the key player is Barry.
I thought that'd be a tough one.
It was. But it comes with a caveat, and the caveat is we're not sure how fit he is, and we're not actually sure that, given all the embargoes and the AFL ratification processes, because of the sanctions that have continued to be implemented on the club, we don't know whether or not he's going to be registered. I don't know if anything's broken in the last sort of couple of hours. But as it stands, the Pedersen has done his first press conference or interviews today, and he's admitted that he doesn't know whether or not he's going to be eligible to play. We're crossing everything that he is, and if we're going to do anything going forwards, it's going to be Bannon in the middle of the park pulling strings. If he's not available, I would assume that we will play a Swedish fella called Svante Ingolson, who at times last season
he's not called Ollie
really
then.
No.
Sorry, I have to.
Get your coat.
Chris does that to you. I apologize. Yeah. Okay. I'll see you later.
Svante Ingolson is probably the one that we will be pinning a lot of our hopes on, because he was, as daft as it sounds, he was the one that was consistently in and around the squad on a regular basis and putting in decent performances. We do have Jan Valery, who is all right, but from a right back, right wing back, right centre half, he's not going to be the most creative player that we've got. And we've also got Nathaniel Chalabar, who has played for England, but is absolutely blighted by injuries. So with that one, it's, if we can keep him fit, he might prove to be something of a foil for Bannon in the middle of the park. Bannon and Chalabar in the middle of the park is a decent Championship midfielder. It's just everything else that's going to be going on around him that's the concern. But to answer your question, Bannon, and if not Bannon, Ingolson.
Yeah, well, I mean, there you go. At least you've got something to fingers crossed, hopefully get registered to and have someone to refer. Nathan Chalabar's he's a decent-ish midfielder. He's better than some players we could give you. Well, I'd rather have Nathan Chalabar here than Oliver Skip. Sorry, Chris. I know how much you love Oliver Skip, but I'd rather swap. I mean, our standout / threat player, I suppose, I don't know how much of the Leicester squad you know, but I suppose you can take a guess at a couple of them, but it'll probably be the return of Fatawu. It looks like nothing's going to materialise this time around, at least for this game, but El Canouse could be one to watch out for. Even if we get 3 weeks out of him and then he goes near the end of the window, at least we'll get some form out of him. But that, you know, I could make you go back to being depressed, and I don't want to do that. So I'll just leave it at Fatawu as our one to watch. Having said all that, before, and guys, Steve has been brilliant tonight on the stream. Before we end this stream and go into a preview over at the award-winning Wednesday Weeks channel, the link in the description, make sure you catch this ugly mug and that better-looking gentleman over there in a little bit after this. After all that lovely talk about how bad our clubs have been over the last year and a bit, what's your score predictions? Because I've had some wild ones. I've run our prediction group. I've run the LTID TV prediction group. Chris does the show for it, but I'm the one that does the bad maths and takes the brown envelopes from Chris. A lot of harsh predictions. I feel like you'd want to take a short walk up, a long walk off a short beer if you read some of the predictions our lovely lot have made. What is your predictions for the game?
Pain.
Pain. Yeah, let me write that. Leicester City win. Sheffield Wednesday pain.
I don't think it's going to be an absolute cricket score. I just don't. But I can't see anything other than a comfortable victory for Leicester. I'm not going to say if we keep it below 6, that'd be great, because I don't think that's right, proper, and fair for the lads that we've got. And I do think that if our boys turn up and if Bannon plays, like I've said, and we can name a reasonable starting 11 and stay clear of injuries, I think we've got enough to be relatively competitive. You made the point around the whole game, the season after you won the Premier League. If it's that sort of setup, I don't necessarily think that people are going to run away with it. I do think we're going to lose the game, but we've got a very good goalkeeper, and we've got, you know, some decent players that are going to be in and around things. We just don't have enough of them. I can see a 3-4-0. I'm gonna plump for 4.
You're going 4-0. Well, I mean, Neil in the chat has gone 4-0 as well. Chris has been nice to you. He's given you a goal, maybe a Barry Bannon 96-minute goal. He's gone 3-1. I actually hold a lot of love for Wednesday. You had Di Canio play for you. You had Benito Carboni play for you. You had the best sponsor the Premier League has ever seen, sponsored by Chumba Chub, the lollipop. Never in doubt. You know, Doritos from Wolves say a lot of people, but I say that was a B-Tech Sheffield Wednesday idea. They stole that from you many years ago. And I've always been fond. I know it's changed now, but I was always very fond of the, you know, when you're sponsored by Saunders and you had the owl, the old traditional owl badge was brilliant. So I can't remember what I went for in the predictions league, so Chris is probably going to call me out here, but I can see you scoring because Chris's favourite Wout Faze will probably play, and he's given an own goal in that sense. I'm actually matching Chris, and I'm going to say on this show, because it doesn't matter if I'm right in this one, won't get many points in our prediction league, but I'm going to agree with Chris. I can see you scoring, but I do see us getting a win 3-1. Scott's gone 2-0 to Leicester. Don't think it'd be easy. Sheffield Wednesday trying to keep things really tight. And I suppose that's one or two ways you either go about it. You either, you know, everybody's got you down as 24th. You're going to lose, 46 out of 46 in some people's eyes. So it could be a case of, well, let's stick, maybe, go against the grain. Did I? No, I didn't. Chris is lying. That's a typo, Chris. That was a 6. That was 00. No, don't. I that. No, go on. Shoot. Someone put some comments in. No, I didn't, Chris. Stop grasping me up. I was nice in that, honest. Well, this is why I've got bottom of the predictions league, because that's not happening now. You're safe. You're safe. If that's what I really went, and that's why it's not happening. But no, I do feel that you've got nothing to lose, and when the pressure is off a team, it's weird how it can just seem to affect an opposition. Again, I made the likeness into that Hull game. Or Leicester, Premier League champions, going away to Hull, could barely field a squad. They've got 3 men out there with one leg and a sick note and a bus pass. Well, Leicester should smash it. And of course, traditional Leicester, we went and lost that game. So you never know. I mean, I will remind you if it's 6-0, and I will never let us forget it if it's 6-0. He does know that now. Oh, did I go 3-0? I see. See, told you I was nice to you. Told you I was nice. I didn't go 6-0. Yeah, cheeky. You're trying to get me in trouble. Trouble. Steve, you've had to answer probably the same awful questions on here that you've been dealing with for God knows how long with this. You've been an absolute pleasure to have on. We're going on to your show in about a few minutes, aren't we? We're doing a quick swap over straight to yours. Tell everybody where they can find you and why your show is very, very award-winning.
So we're the Wednesday Week. You can catch us on all social media platforms. We're primarily active on X, but we've also got a presence on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. Get us on all those. We've got our link tree in our description as well. If you go on X and look for TWWcast, you'll find us on there. We are award-winning because we are the best content creators in the 2024 FCAs. So the Football Content Awards podcast award ceremony last year, we won that, much to our delight. So yeah, that's us.
And like Chris says there, thanks Steve for coming on. It's been a pleasure to have you on. And Scott, to answer your question, no, he's not. He was he left on a free, did Röhl, much to the dismay of Sheffield Wednesday fans. Just to answer that quickly. We will be live. And again, if you just remember what I told you on our last stream, guys, if you want to listen to Steve's lovely voice and not have to see my ugly mug, and you watch it on your phone, just put your phone face down. You won't have to see it then. But go and join us on the Wednesday week. We'll be there in a few minutes. Thank you. Go on, Steve.
I was going to say, ours actually will be pre-recorded. We're going to record now. We're going to go out first thing in the morning so we can do all these.
Oh, yeah, well, there you go. Well, there you go.
We'll let you know.
There you go. You don't have to suffer by your ugly face.
It's a two-parter. It's a two-parter.
I like it. I love a pre-recorded two-parter because it means I can just do what I want until it goes live. But no, honestly, guys, go and subscribe to his channel. make sure, that way they can't miss it. They've got no excuses. Go and support him. He's a lovely bloke. He's, the depressing pills he must be on supporting Wednesday this season to show his face on camera. Please go and support his channel. We'll be doing a pre-record of that. And then you won't miss it in the morning when it comes on. And then, as Chris is saying there, Madsen transfer special at 9 o'clock. So it gives me a chance to go and do my recording and give that a watch later. I've been Brad from LTID TV. Chris, no, you're not Chris. That's Chris because he's down there. Steve has come in from Wednesday week. This has been the preview show. And if I don't see you, no, I've ruined it. I butchered the quotes. Chris, I have one job, Chris. I butchered a quote. As I always do. If I don't see you in a bit, I'll see you in a while. Good night, everybody. And see Chris at 9. And no, I'm not pissed.
Oh, dear.
That's your cue for the outro, Chris.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.